Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today, we explain Prophets Joshua chapter 18 in a clear and simple way, step by step. Let's just dive right into the history and the geography of this really pivotal text. It's this fascinating moment where ancient geography literally meets divine destiny. Our mission for this explainer is super straightforward. We are sticking strictly to the literal meaning, what's known in Hebrew as the Peshat, of the text. No deep symbolic dives or Kabbalah today, just a really pure, direct look at exactly what's happening, who is involved, and where it's all going down.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap. We'll start with the gathering at Shiloh, move into mapping the land, then check out the borders of Benjamin, followed by the cities of Benjamin. We'll wrap up with some key ideas and practical lessons, and finally do a quick chapter recap. Simple enough, right? Let's get to it.
All right, Section 1, Gathering at Shiloh. We are jumping right into Joshua 18, focusing on verses 1 and 2. Okay, so let's set the historical scene here. The whole assembly of the Israelites gathers together at a place called Shiloh, and they set up the tent of meeting. The context given in that first verse is absolutely vital. It tells us the country was brought under their control. So, the major, sweeping wars of conquest, they're effectively over. But then verse 2 drops a lingering, really critical issue on us. 7 Israelite tribes still haven't received their inheritance. Shiloh is now their physical and spiritual center, but this massive project, the final division of the land, has just completely stalled out.
And this stalled progress leads us right into verse 3. Joshua looks at the people and he issues this incredibly direct, powerful rebuke. He basically asks them, "How long will you wait before you begin to take possession of the land that the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given you?" He is calling out their passivity, and he's not holding back. I mean, the absolute hardest part, subduing the land, is mostly done, but they're lacking that basic final initiative to just go in, finalize their settlements, and take ownership. It's a really striking collision of human hesitation and divine mandate.
Moving on to Section 2, Mapping the Land. This covers verses 4 through 10.
You've got to appreciate the absolute logistical genius of Joshua here. He knows that huge, overwhelming tasks need serious, structured organization, so he rolls out a methodical 4-step plan. First up, in verse 4, he appoints 3 men from each of those 7 remaining tribes. That gives him a highly specialized 21-man survey team. Second, their job is to physically walk the land, survey it, and literally write down a description of it. Third, in verse 5, they're ordered to divide this unclaimed land strictly into 7 parts. And fourth, they have to bring all that detailed data back to Shiloh. Why? So Joshua can cast lots in the presence of the Lord to make sure the distribution is completely fair.
Now you might be wondering, what exactly is the land they're mapping? Well, verse 5 clears that up by giving us our geographical anchors. Joshua reminds everyone that the tribe of Judah is staying in its territory down south, and the house of Joseph, meaning the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, are staying up north. So this survey team's mission is specifically to map out all the unclaimed land that's basically sandwiched right between these 2 massive, already established borders.
But wait a second. Why divide it into exactly 7 parts when Israel has 12 tribes? The math in verse 7 answers this perfectly. Joshua points out 2 big exceptions. First, the Levites don't get a tribal land portion because the priestly service of the Lord is their inheritance. Second, the tribes of Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh already got their land way back on the east side of the Jordan River from Moses. So you subtract those groups, and boom, you are left with exactly 7 tribes needing land.
I absolutely love the emphasis on documentation in verses 8 through 10. The 21 surveyors head out, and verse 9 tells us they didn't just eyeball the land, they actually wrote its description on a scroll or in a book, town by town, mapping it into those 7 parts. They recorded it meticulously. Then they come back to Joshua at the camp in Shiloh. And in verse 10, Joshua casts lots for them before the Lord and distributes the land. So you have this amazing dynamic where the meticulous data was gathered by humans, but the final impartial decision was left to God.
All right, Section 3, the borders of Benjamin. Let's look at verses 11 through 20.
So the very first lot that gets drawn falls to the tribe of Benjamin, distributed clan by clan. And let me tell you, their allotted territory is prime real estate. The text specifies it lay precisely between the tribes of Judah on the south and the house of Joseph on the north. They are strategically wedged right between the 2 major established powers we just talked about. It's a highly centralized, incredibly important piece of ancient land.
Now, Joshua chapter 18 is famous for its super precise geography, so we're going to take our time and trace the borders detailed in verses 12 through 14. Let's start with the north border. It begins at the Jordan River in the east, goes past the northern slope of Jericho, heads west up into the hill country, and pops out at the desert of Beth Aven. From there, the west border crosses over to the south slope of Luz, which the text handily clarifies as Bethel. It goes down to Ataroth Adar, near lower Beth Horon, and then turns south along the western side until it hits Kiriath Baal, also known as Kiriath Jearim, which is a Judaic town.
Next up, we are decoding verses 15 through 19, which map out the southern boundary. It kicks off at the outskirts of Kiriath Jearim, heads to the spring of the waters of Nephtoah, and runs down to the Hinnom Valley. Now, here's a detail you do not want to miss. It goes along the southern slope of the Jebusite city. Just to clarify, the Jebusite city is the ancient name for Jerusalem. The border runs right past it to En Rogel, curves north to En Shemesh, passes the Stone of Bohan, heads down to the Araba, and finally ends at the northern bay of the Salt Sea. And the Salt Sea is exactly what we know today as the Dead Sea.
To neatly wrap up the border mapping, verse 20 gives us the easiest boundary of the whole bunch. The eastern boundary is literally just the Jordan River. It formed this definitive, natural border on the eastern side, locking in the inheritance of the Benjamin clans on all four sides. Thanks to the surveyors, it is an airtight, fully defined piece of territory.
Which brings us to section 4, the cities of Benjamin, covering verses 21 through 28.
So verses 21 through 28 actually list out the exact cities given to Benjamin's clans, and the text neatly groups them into a set of 12 towns and a set of 14 towns. The 12 towns include some really familiar names, like Jericho and Bethel, which literally means house of God. We also see Beth Hagla, Emet Keziz, Beth Araba, Zemaraim, Avim, Para, Ophrah, Kepher Ammoni, Ophni, and Geba. Then, moving to the 14 towns, we've got Gibeon, Ramah, and, again, the Jebusite city, which verse 28 explicitly notes is Jerusalem. It rounds out the list with Beeroth, Mizpah, Kephirah, Moza, Rechem, Irpeel, Terah, Zelah, Halaph, Gibeah, and Kiriath. Add them up, and that's a grand total of 26 fortified towns, plus all their surrounding villages.
All right, section 5, key ideas and lessons. Let's talk about the practical wisdom here.
Now that we've mapped out the history and the physical geography step by step, let's extract some literal, practical life lessons from this chapter. Because believe it or not, there's profound everyday wisdom in these ancient events. First up, overcoming passivity. Joshua's sharp rebuke, "How long will you wait?" is a massive reminder not to just sit around endlessly before claiming what's rightfully ours. Sometimes we do all the initial hard work, but then we just kind of hesitate at the finish line. Second, the power of organization. Huge, overwhelming tasks require methodical surveying, data gathering, and planning. Joshua didn't just guess, he sent experts. And third, fairness and transparency. By casting lots publicly at Shiloh, they made sure the final division was completely impartial and divinely guided, avoiding any jealousy or civil war among the tribes.
This perfectly highlights our next core takeaway. Action requires clarity. Notice how heavily the text emphasized that those 21 surveyors had to physically write down the descriptions of the land in a book, a literal scroll, before Joshua took any action at all. You simply cannot divide, conquer, or build on something you haven't clearly defined. Whether you're dividing ancient territory or, just managing your own life projects, taking the time to thoroughly document your landscape is the absolute essential first step before making a move.
Finally, section 6, our chapter 18 recap. Let's bring it all together.
Let's do a quick run-through of the chronological flow we just explored to really lock it in. First step, the entire assembly gathers at Shiloh and sets up the tent of meeting. It's their spiritual hub, but 7 tribes are just passively sitting there without land. Second step, Joshua rebukes their passivity and sends 21 men out to methodically survey and map the unallocated land into a book. Third step, Joshua casts lots at Shiloh to impartially divide those 7 parts before the Lord. And fourth step, the tribe of Benjamin is drawn first. They receive this highly strategic territory wedged right between Judah and Joseph, defined by incredibly precise borders and encompassing 26 specific cities, including major ones like Jericho and Jerusalem.
I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought pulled straight from Joshua's bold words back in verse 3. He asked the ancient Israelites, "How long will you wait before you begin to take possession?" I want you to think about that deeply in your own context. What in your own life are you passively waiting to take possession of? The territory might be totally ready, the major battles might already be fought, but you still have to take that structured, organized initiative to step in and actually claim it.
Thank you for learning with us. If this helps you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.